Captain Jake Morrison stood by the big window of Luna Station, looking out at the stars. He had seen many strange things in his 20 years in space, but nothing like this. A massive ship was coming toward them, moving in ways that made no sense. The ship was huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its metal surface seemed to flow like water, changing colors from silver to gold to deep blue. Strange patterns moved across its hull like waves on an ocean. Jake had never seen anything like it. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Lisa Kane from across the room. She was the station's best scientist, and her face was pale with shock. "The readings from that ship are impossible. It's moving faster than light, but it's not using any engines we can detect." Jake walked over to look at her screens. Numbers flashed across the display, but they made no sense. The ship's energy output was higher than a small star, yet it made no sound and left no trail in space. "What kind of ship is that?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "I don't know." "But wait, there's more. The computer just identified it. It's the UES Horizon." Jake felt his blood turn cold. The Horizon had been Earth's pride and joy 15 years ago. It was humanity's first real attempt to reach another star system. 300 brave people had volunteered to travel to Alpha Centauri, knowing they might never return home. Then the ship had vanished. One day it was there, sending regular reports. The next day, nothing, no signals, no trace, no wreckage. It was as if the ship and everyone on it had simply stopped existing. That's impossible," Jake said. "The Horizon was destroyed years ago." "The computer doesn't make mistakes about ship signatures," Lisa replied. "That's definitely the Horizon." "But look at these readings. The ship is 3 times bigger than it used to be, and it's made of materials that don't exist in our periodic table." Commander Pete Collins ran into the room, his face red from running. "Captain, we're getting a message from that ship. It's Captain Ryan Brooks from the Horizon. He's asking for permission to dock." Jake stared at Pete. "Ryan Brooks? But he's been dead for 15 years. "That's what I thought too," Pete said. "But it's definitely his voice. He sounds exactly the same as he did when the Horizon left Earth." Jake looked back at the approaching ship. It was close enough now that he could see details on its hull. The metal seemed to pulse with its own light, and strange symbols were carved into its surface. These weren't human symbols. They looked alien, ancient, and powerful. "Put Captain Brooks on the main screen," Jake ordered. The large screen in the center of the room flickered to life. A man's face appeared, and Jake felt his heart skip a beat. It was definitely Ryan Brooks, but he looked exactly the same as he had 15 years ago. Not a day older, not a gray hair out of place. "Jake, is that you?" Ryan said with a smile. "It's good to see a familiar face. We need to talk. There's a lot to explain." "Ryan, where have you been?" Jake asked. "It's been 15 years. We thought you were dead." Ryan's smile faded. 15 years? "Jake, we've been gone for over 200 years. Time moves differently where we've been." Lisa stepped forward. "That's impossible. Time doesn't work that way." "Dr. Kane, I presume?" Ryan said. "I remember reading your papers on temporal mechanics. You're about to learn that everything we thought we knew about time and space is wrong." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What happened to you out there, Ryan?" "We found something, Jake. Something that changed everything. The universe is not what we thought it was. There are forces out there, technologies that make our most advanced computers look like stone tools." The ship was now close enough that Jake could see movement on its hull. Figures in spacesuits were working on the surface, but they were moving in ways that defied gravity. Some were walking upside down, others were floating in the vacuum of space without any propulsion systems. "How is your crew doing that?" Jake asked. "The ship keeps them safe," Ryan replied. "It creates its own rules about how physics should work. Jake, we need to dock. There are things I need to show you, things that will change humanity forever." Jake looked at Lisa, who was staring at her instruments with wide eyes. "The gravitational field around that ship is completely stable," she whispered. "It's like the ship is deciding what laws of physics apply to it." "Permission to dock granted," Jake said. But Ryan, you and your crew will need to go through full medical and security checks. Of course, Ryan replied. But Jake, you need to contact Earth immediately. Call everyone. The politicians, the military, the scientists. What we've learned out there, what we've brought back, it's going to change everything. As the Horizon approached the docking bay, Jake watched in amazement. The ship didn't slow down gradually like normal ships did. Instead, it simply stopped, as if momentum meant nothing to it. The docking clamps engaged automatically, and Jake could feel the station shake slightly as the two vessels connected. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "The energy readings just spiked. That ship is pumping power into our station. Our reactors are running at 150% efficiency, but our systems aren't overloading. It's like the ship is teaching our technology how to work better." Jake realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The Horizon had returned, but it was no longer just a human ship. It had become something more, something that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. As he prepared to meet his old friend Ryan Brooks, Jake wondered what other surprises the returned ship would bring. The universe had just become a much stranger and more dangerous place. The meeting room on Luna Station had never felt so crowded. Representatives from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies sat around the large table, all staring at Captain Ryan Brooks and his crew. Despite being gone for 15 years, they all looked exactly the same as when they left. Jake Morrison sat at the head of the table, trying to process what he was seeing. Next to Ryan sat Chief Engineer Amy Watson, a woman Jake remembered as being brilliant but always covered in grease from working on engines. Now she looked clean and calm, but her eyes seemed to hold knowledge that was almost frightening. Security Chief Carl Stone stood by the wall, his hand resting on his weapon out of habit, but Jake noticed something strange. Carl's shadow seemed to move independently, shifting and changing even when Carl stood perfectly still. "Let me start from the beginning," Ryan said, his voice steady. "We were 3 days out from Alpha Centauri when our sensors detected something massive. It wasn't a planet or a star. It was a structure bigger than anything we could imagine." General Frank Hayes, representing Earth's military, leaned forward. "What kind of structure?" "Picture a city that stretches for millions of miles," Amy Watson replied, "made of materials that our scanners couldn't identify. The architecture was impossible, with buildings that seemed to exist in more dimensions than we can see." Dr. Lisa Kane pulled up a holographic display showing the Horizon sensor readings. "According to this data, the structure you found would have a mass greater than our entire solar system. How is that possible?" Ryan exchanged glances with his crew. "Because it wasn't built using the same rules of physics that we know. The beings who created it had learned to manipulate reality itself." The room fell silent. Jake felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. "What beings?" "We called them the architects," Carl Stone said, speaking for the first time. "They were the first intelligent species to achieve faster than light travel. They explored the galaxy millions of years ago, long before humans existed." "Were?" General Hayes asked. "What happened to them?" Ryan's expression grew dark. "They encountered something that even their advanced technology couldn't handle. They called it the Devourer. It's not a species or a machine. It's something that exists outside our understanding of reality." Amy Watson activated a small device, and the room filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red areas spread like an infection across the outer edges. The Devourer moves through space, consuming everything in its path. Not just planets and stars, but space itself, time itself. When it passes through a system, that system stops existing. Not destroyed, not dead. It never was. Jake stared at the map. "How do you know all this?" "Because the architects left us a message," Ryan replied. "When our ship approached their structure, it activated. Technology that had been waiting for millions of years suddenly came to life. It scanned us, learned our language, and then it spoke to us." "The architects had been preparing for this moment," Carl added. "They knew that eventually other species would find their technology. They designed it to choose worthy successors." Dr. Kane studied her instruments. The energy readings from your ship suggest it's been completely rebuilt. How is that possible? The architect technology doesn't just upgrade machines, Amy explained. It upgrades the people who use it. When the structure examined us, it changed us. We can now understand technologies that would have been impossible for us to comprehend before. Changed you how? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Ryan held up his hand. As Jake watched in amazement, Ryan's fingers began to glow with a soft blue light. We can manipulate matter at the molecular level. We can see across vast distances of space. We can survive in environments that would kill normal humans. But the most important change, Carl said, is that we can now operate the architect technology. Our ship is no longer just a human vessel. It's become a hybrid, part human engineering and part architect science. General Hayes stood up. You saying you've become aliens? We're still human, Ryan replied, but we're human plus something more. The architects designed their technology to enhance species, not replace them. They believed that diversity of thought was crucial to fighting. The Devourer. Amy Watson manipulated the holographic display, showing a detailed view of the horizon. Our ship can now travel faster than light without using conventional engines. It bends space around itself, creating shortcuts through dimensions we can't normally access. More importantly, Carl added, it can fight the Devourer. The architect's weapons don't destroy matter or energy. They strengthen reality itself, making it impossible for the Devourer to consume. Jake felt overwhelmed. Why are you telling us this? Why not just leave and fight this thing yourselves? Ryan's expression became serious. Because we can't do it alone. The architects tried to fight the Devourer by themselves, and they failed. They realized that the only way to win was to spread their technology to multiple species, to create an alliance that could fight from different angles. There are other architect sites scattered across the galaxy, Amy said. Dozens of them. Each one contains technology that could elevate a species to our level, but they can only be activated by beings who prove they're worthy. Worthy how? Dr. Kane asked. By showing courage, intelligence, and most importantly, the willingness to sacrifice for others, Carl replied. The architects believe that only species with these qualities could be trusted with reality-altering technology. General Hayes looked skeptical. And they think humans qualify? The fact that we're here proves it, Ryan said. The architect. Technology wouldn't have chosen us if we weren't worthy. But there's more. The enhancement process showed us something else. Humanity has a natural resistance to the Devourer's influence. Jake leaned forward. What do you mean? The Devourer works by convincing reality that things never existed, Amy explained. But human consciousness is stubborn. We have a natural tendency to hold on to our memories, our beliefs, our sense of what's real. That makes us uniquely qualified to anchor reality against the Devourer's attacks. How long do we have? Jake asked. Ryan's expression grew grim. The Devourer has already consumed the outer edge of our galaxy. Based on the architect's calculations, it will reach the core systems in about 50 years, unless we stop it. The room erupted in discussion as the implications hit everyone. Jake stood up, calling for order. What do you need from us? We need humanity to unite, Ryan replied. Every government, every colony, every human in space needs to work together. We need to build more ships like the Horizon, and we need to find the other architect sites. Can you teach us how to use this technology? Dr. Kane asked. Some of it, Amy replied. But the full enhancement process can only happen at the architect sites. We can show you how to build the ships, but you'll need to visit the sites to become true partners in this fight. Jake looked around the room at the assembled representatives. We need to call an emergency session of the Human Council. This is bigger than any one colony or government. As the meeting broke up, Jake remained behind with Ryan and his crew. Ryan, are you sure about this? Are you sure we can win? Ryan smiled, but it was a sad smile. Jake, the architects were more advanced than we can imagine, and they failed. But they left us something they didn't have. What's that? Hope, and the knowledge that we don't have to face this alone. The universe is vast, and there are other species out there who are facing the same threat. If we can find them, unite them, maybe we can succeed where the architects failed. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The universe had just become a much more dangerous place, but it had also become a place where humanity could become something greater than they had ever imagined. The emergency session of the Human Council had been going on for 3 days. Representatives from every human colony, research station, and military outpost filled the Great Hall on Luna Station. The debates were heated, voices raised in fear and confusion. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the center of the room, watching the chaos unfold. Since the Horizon's return, everything had changed. The comfortable illusion that humanity was alone in the universe had been shattered, replaced by the terrifying reality of cosmic threats beyond imagination. Captain Ryan Brooks and his crew sat at a special table surrounded by scientists who were trying to understand the technology they had brought back. Dr. Lisa Kane worked frantically at her computers, analyzing data that challenged everything she thought she knew about physics. "The energy patterns are impossible," she muttered to herself. "Matter and energy behaving in ways that contradict our most basic laws. How can a ship exist in multiple dimensions at once?" Amy Watson, the Horizon's chief engineer, overheard her. "Dr. Kane, you're still thinking in terms of human physics. The architects learned to work with the fundamental forces that create reality itself. They didn't break the laws of physics. They rewrote them." "But how?" Dr. Kane asked. "How does a species learn to manipulate reality?" "Through necessity," Carl Stone replied grimly. "When your entire civilization faces extinction, you learn to do things you never thought possible." The main screen at the front of the room flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones marked the areas where the Devourer had already struck. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The entity was moving steadily toward the galactic core, consuming everything in its path. General Frank Hayes stood up, calling for order. "People, we need to focus. Captain Brooks, tell us exactly what this Devourer is." Ryan Brooks activated his personal display, and the room filled with images that made several representatives gasp in shock. The pictures showed star systems that seemed to be unraveling, planets that flickered in and out of existence, and space itself appearing to tear like fabric. "The Devourer isn't a physical entity," Ryan explained. "It's something that exists outside our normal understanding of reality. Think of it as a cosmic virus that attacks the very concept of existence." "When the Devourer approaches a star system," Carl added, "it doesn't destroy the planets or the stars. It convinces the universe that they never existed in the first place. All records disappear, all memories fade, all evidence vanishes." Dr. Kane looked horrified. "That's impossible. You can't just make something stop existing." "The architects thought the same thing," Amy Watson said sadly. "They were wrong. The Devourer has consumed 17 entire galaxies. The Milky Way is next on its list." A representative from Mars Colony stood up. "If this thing is so powerful, how do we fight it?" "With reality anchors," Ryan replied. "The architects developed technology that strengthens the fabric of space-time itself. Instead of attacking the Devourer directly, we make reality so strong that it can't be consumed. The Horizon has become one of these reality anchors," Carl explained. "Our ship now exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When the Devourer tries to erase us, it can't because we're anchored to reality itself." Jake Morrison stepped forward. "How many more ships like the Horizon do we need?" "Thousands," Ryan answered. "The architect's data shows that fighting the Devourer requires a coordinated defense across multiple star systems. We need ships that can hold the line while reality anchors are established." "But building these ships requires visiting the architect's sites," Amy added. "The technology can't be copied or reverse engineered. It has to be given freely by the architect systems." Dr. Kane pulled up a star chart. "According to the data you've provided, the nearest architect site is in the Vega system. That's 25 light-years away." "Our ship can make the journey in 3 days," Carl said. "But we can only take a limited number of people. The architect enhancement process is dangerous. Not everyone survives it. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Jake looked around at the faces of humanity's leaders. Fear, determination, and hope warred in their expressions. "What are our chances?" someone called out. Ryan's expression grew grim. The architects were far more advanced than we are. They had technology that could manipulate matter, energy, space, and time. They had millions of years to prepare for this fight. "And they lost," General Hayes said flatly. "Yes," Ryan admitted. "But they left us something they didn't have when they started their fight. They left us knowledge. They left us their technology, and they left us a network of allies." "Allies?" Jake asked. Amy Watson activated another display. "The architects weren't the only species to fight the Devourer. Our ship's sensors have detected the ruins of at least 12 other civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Each one left behind pieces of the puzzle. Some of these species might still exist," Carl added, "hidden, diminished, but alive. If, we can find them, unite them, we might have a chance. The Devourer's weakness is that it can only focus on one target at a time," Ryan explained. "If we can coordinate attacks from multiple directions, using different technologies and approaches, we might be able to overwhelm it." Dr. Kane looked up from her calculations. "Based on the Devourer's current speed, we have approximately 50 years before it reaches the Sol system. But if it detects active resistance, it might accelerate its approach. Then we need to move fast," Jake said. "Ryan, how soon can you take a team to the Vega site?" "We can leave immediately," Ryan replied. "But Jake, you need to understand something. The people who undergo the architect enhancement process won't be entirely human anymore. They'll be more than human, but they'll also be different." "Different how?" Jake asked. "They'll be able to perceive reality in ways that normal humans can't," Amy explained. "They'll be able to manipulate matter and energy with their minds. They'll be able to survive in environments that would kill normal people. But they'll still be human in their hearts and minds," Carl added. "The architects designed their technology to enhance species, not replace them." A young woman from the Europa colony stood up. "I'll go. If it means saving humanity, I'll take the risk." Others began volunteering, and soon Jake had a list of over 100 people willing to undergo the enhancement process. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, and civilians all stepped forward. "We'll need to be careful about who we choose," Ryan warned. "The architect technology is selective. It won't enhance just anyone. It looks for specific qualities: courage, intelligence, creativity, and most importantly, the willingness to sacrifice." "For others, what about the people who don't get chosen?" Jake asked. "They'll still be vital to the fight," Amy replied. "We'll need support crews, logistics personnel, and coordinators. The enhanced humans will be the weapons, but they'll need an entire civilization backing them up." As the session continued, plans began to take shape. Humanity would split into two groups: those who would seek enhancement at the architect sites, and those who would work to prepare Earth and its colonies for the coming war. "There's something else," Ryan said as the meeting wound down. "The architects left us a message specifically for humanity. They said that among all the species they had encountered, humans showed the most promise for this fight." "Why?" Jake asked. "Because humans are stubborn," Carl replied with a slight smile. "We refuse to give up even when the odds are impossible. We hold on to hope when logic says we should despair, and we have a natural tendency to work together. When facing extinction, the Devourer works by convincing reality that things never existed," Amy added. "But human consciousness is remarkably resistant to that kind of manipulation. We remember things even when the universe tries to forget them." Dr. Kane looked up from her work. "I've been analyzing the quantum signatures from your ship. There's something unique about the way human brains interact with the architect technology. It's as if we were designed to use it. Or maybe," Ryan said quietly, "the architects designed it to work with minds like ours." As the representatives began to leave, Jake remained behind with Ryan and his crew. "Ryan, are you sure about this? Are you sure we can win?" Ryan looked out at the stars through the great window of Luna Station. Jake, I've seen things that would drive most people insane. I've witnessed the death of entire civilizations. But I've also seen what humans can accomplish when we work together. The architects failed because they tried to fight alone, Carl added. They were too proud to seek help from other species. We won't make that mistake. Humanity has one advantage. The architects didn't have, Amy said. We're not trying to preserve just our own species. We're trying to save the entire galaxy. That gives us allies we haven't even met yet. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Then let's get started. How soon can we begin the journey to Vega? Tomorrow, Ryan replied. But Jake, once we start down this path, there's no going back. Humanity will never be the same. Good, Jake said firmly. Because the humanity that existed before today wouldn't be strong enough to face what's coming. We need to become something more. As the horizon prepared for its next journey, Jake looked out at the stars and wondered what humanity would become. The universe had just become a battlefield, and humanity was about to disco. The journey to the Vega system had taken 3 days, but those 3 days had changed everything. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the horizon, watching the massive architect structure that dominated the space around Vega. The structure was even more incredible than Ryan Brooks had described. It stretched for millions of miles, a complex network of crystalline towers and flowing metal corridors that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Parts of the structure appeared solid, while others flickered in and out of existence like mirages. The entire construction pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light that reminded Jake of a heartbeat. It's beautiful, whispered Dr. Lisa Kane, who had been selected as one of the 50 humans to undergo the enhancement process, and terrifying. The architects called it a reality forge, explained Amy Watson. It's not just a factory or a laboratory. It's a place where the fundamental forces of the universe can be shaped and molded. Jake looked at the volunteers who had made the journey with them. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, and even a few artists and philosophers. The architect technology had specific requirements, Ryan had explained. It needed minds that could think in new ways, not just follow orders. How does the selection process work? Asked Colonel Beth Parker, a tough Marine who had volunteered despite the risks. We don't choose, Carl Stone replied. The structure chooses us. It will scan each volunteer, looking for the mental and spiritual qualities needed to handle the enhancement. What happens to those who aren't chosen? Jake asked. They return to the ship, unchanged but unharmed, Ryan answered. The architects designed their technology to be selective because the wrong kind of mind can be driven insane by the enhancement process. Dr. Kane studied her instruments. The energy readings from that structure are off the charts. It's drawing power from the star itself, but somehow not affecting Vega's output or stability. The architects learned to work with energy at levels we can barely comprehend, Amy explained. They could tap into the fundamental forces that hold atoms together, that keep stars burning, that maintain the structure of space and time itself. A soft chime echoed through the ship. The structure is responding to our presence, Ryan announced. It's ready to begin the selection process. Jake felt his heart racing. Everything humanity had worked toward for the past 6 months had led to this moment. The plans, the preparations, the heated debates in the Human Council, all of it came down to whether the architect technology would accept human volunteers. Remember, Ryan said as the volunteers prepared to board the shuttle, don't try to fight the scanning process. Let the structure rid your mind, your heart, your deepest thoughts. It needs to understand who you are. The shuttle bay doors opened, and Jake watched as the volunteers climbed aboard the small transport vessel. Dr. Kane gave him a nervous smile before disappearing into the shuttle. Colonel Parker saluted sharply. The others simply nodded, their faces set with determination. I should be going with them, Jake said. No, Ryan replied firmly. Humanity needs leaders who can coordinate the larger war effort. The enhanced humans will be the weapons, but they need commanders who can think strategically about the entire galaxy. Jake watched as the shuttle detached from the horizon and began its approach to the architect's structure. The massive construction seemed to come alive as the shuttle drew near. Lights began flashing in complex patterns, and sections of the structure rearranged themselves to create a docking port. "How long does the process take?" Jake asked. "For the architects, it took several years," Carl replied. "But they were starting from scratch, learning to use the technology for the first time. For us, it should take only a few hours." "Should?" Jake asked nervously. "The structure will adapt the process to human physiology," Amy explained. "But every species is different. We won't know for certain until it's finished." Hours passed slowly. Jake paced the observation deck, watching the architect's structure for any sign of what was happening inside. The lights continued to pulse and shift, and occasionally he could see energy discharges that lit up the entire structure like lightning. "The power levels are incredible," reported the ship's science officer. "Whatever's happening in there is using more energy than our entire civilization produces in a year." "That's normal," Ryan said. "The enhancement process involves rebuilding the volunteers at the molecular level. Their brains, their nervous systems, their entire bodies are being optimized to interface with architect technology." "Are they still human?" Jake asked. "More human than they were before," Carl replied. "The architects didn't believe in replacing species. They believed in helping them become the best versions of themselves." Finally, after 8 hours, the shuttle began its return journey. Jake watched anxiously as it approached the horizon's docking bay. The volunteers had been gone for less than a day, but Jake knew that when they returned, everything would be different. The shuttle landed with a soft thud, and Jake hurried to the docking bay. The door opened, and Dr. Kane stepped out. At first glance, she looked the same, but Jake quickly noticed the differences. Her eyes seemed brighter, more aware. Her movements were more fluid, more confident. "Lisa, are you all right?" Jake asked. She turned to look at him, and Jake saw something in her expression that made his breath catch. It was knowledge, vast and profound, as if she had suddenly understood secrets about the universe that most people couldn't even imagine. "I'm fine, Jake," she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that hadn't been there before. "Better than fine. I can see things now, understand things that were invisible before." The other volunteers emerged from the shuttle, and Jake saw that they had all been changed in similar ways. They moved with a new grace, spoke with voices that carried deeper meaning, and looked at the world with eyes that seemed to see beyond the visible spectrum. "How many were chosen?" Jake asked. "All of us," Colonel Parker replied, and Jake was startled by how different she sounded. Her voice carried authority and power that went beyond her military rank. The structure said that humans have a natural compatibility with architect technology. "We were chosen not just as individuals," Dr. Kane added, "but as representatives of our entire species." The architect's final message was specifically for humanity. What did it say? Jake asked. Dr. Kane closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, she spoke in a voice that seemed to carry the weight of ages. "They said that among all the species they had encountered, humans showed the most promise for stopping the devourer. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we're the most stubborn. The devourer works by convincing reality that things never existed," Colonel Parker explained. "But human consciousness refuses to accept that kind of manipulation. We remember things even when the universe tries to forget them." "There's more," said Dr. Kane. "The architects left us the locations of 11 other species that are still fighting the devourer. They're scattered across the galaxy, each one using different approaches and technologies. We need to find them," Jake said. "Unite them." Already started," replied one of the other volunteers, a young engineer named Bobby Clark. "The enhancement process included a communication network. We can now send messages across the galaxy instantly, using quantum entanglement at the consciousness level." Jake felt a mixture of excitement and fear. "What's our next step?" "We go back to human space and begin the real work," Dr. Kane said. "The enhancement process gave us the knowledge to build ships like the Horizon, but on a much larger scale. We need to create a fleet that can challenge the Devourer directly. How many ships? Jake asked. Thousands, Colonel Parker replied. The Devourer is already approaching the inner rim of the galaxy. We have perhaps 30 years before it reaches. The core systems? Can we build that many ships in 30 years? Jake asked. With the new technology, yes, Dr. Kane said. But it will require the entire human civilization to work together. Every colony, every government, every individual will need to contribute. As the Horizon began its journey back to human space, Jake looked at the enhanced volunteers with a mixture of awe and concern. They were still human, but they were also something more. They had become humanity's hope for survival, but they had also become something that regular humans might fear. Will people accept you? Jake asked Dr. Kane, as they stood together in the observation deck. They'll have to, she replied. Because we're their only chance of survival. The Devourer isn't just a threat to humanity. It's a threat to the very concept of existence itself. What about the people who can't be enhanced? Jake asked. What role will they play? They'll be the heart of the resistance, Dr. Kane said. The enhanced humans will be the weapons, but normal humans will be the soul. They'll remind us why we're fighting, what we're trying to save. Jake nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. He would need to coordinate the largest military effort in human history, uniting every faction and colony under a single banner. The architects failed because they tried to fight alone, Dr. Kane continued. We won't make that mistake. We'll unite every species in the galaxy that still believes in the value of existence. As the stars streaked past the Horizon's windows, Jake wondered what humanity would become. The enhancement process had 2 years had passed since the Horizon's return to human space, and the solar system had become unrecognizable. Massive shipyards floated in the asteroid belt, their construction bays filled with vessels that defied every law of physics humans had once known. The ships were beautiful and terrible, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, and their engines drawing power from the fabric of space itself. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly completed USS Defiance, watching the final preparations for humanity's first major offensive against the Devourer. Through the viewport, he could see dozens of other ships in the fleet, each one a hybrid of human engineering and architect technology. Status report, Jake called out to his crew. All ships report ready for departure, replied Captain Susan Hall, his second-in-command. She was one of the enhanced humans, her eyes glowing with the soft blue light that marked those who had undergone the architect transformation. The reality anchors are fully charged, and the quantum communication network is online. Dr. Lisa Kane worked at the science station, her enhanced mind processing data at speeds that would have been impossible for a normal human. The Devourer's current position is confirmed. It's begun consuming the Rigel system, approximately 400 light-years from Earth. How long until it reaches the core systems? Jake asked. At its current rate, 28 years, Dr. Kane replied. But if we engage it in battle, it may accelerate its approach. Jake nodded grimly. The past 2 years had been a race against time. The enhanced humans had worked tirelessly to build the new fleet, while regular humans had provided the support and resources needed for the massive construction project. Entire colonies had been converted into shipyards, and every human settlement had contributed to the war effort. Any word from our allies? Jake asked. Colonel Beth Parker, now serving as the fleet's tactical coordinator, activated the quantum communication system. The Crystalline Collective has confirmed they're ready to begin their assault on the Devourer's northern flank. The Voidwalkers are in position to strike from the galactic rim. And the others? The machine consciousness will begin their reality. Stabilization protocols once we engage, Colonel Parker replied. The Dreaming Spires are ready to provide psychic support. All 11 allied species are coordinating their efforts with ours. Jake felt a mix of pride and fear. Humanity had not only survived the revelation of the Devourer's existence, but had become the leader of the largest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. The enhanced humans had proven to be natural diplomats, their new abilities allowing them to communicate with species that operated on completely different principles of existence. Are we ready to begin the jump? Jake asked. All ships report ready, Captain Hall confirmed. The reality anchors are synchronized, and the quantum navigation system is locked onto the target coordinates. Jake took a deep breath. Begin the jump sequence. The Defiance and its escort fleet began to move, but not in any way that conventional physics would allow. Instead of accelerating through space, they convinced space itself to move around them. The stars seemed to flow like water, and reality bent to accommodate their passage. Jump complete, Dr. Kane announced. We are now in the Rigel system. Jake looked out at the viewport and felt his blood run cold. The Rigel system was dying. The star itself flickered like a candle in the wind, its light fading as the Devourer consumed the very concept of its existence. The planets were ghostly, images half real and fading fast. There, Colonel Parker pointed to a dark area of space where the stars seemed to bend and twist. That's the Devourer. Jake stared at the entity that had haunted his nightmares for 2 years. It wasn't a ship or a creature. It was more like a hole in reality itself, a place where existence had been torn away. Around its edges, space and time writhed like living things in pain. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake announced over the fleet communication system. Today we make our stand. We fight not just for humanity, but for the very concept of existence itself. The architects believed in us. Our OIs believe in us. Now it's time to prove them right. The enhanced humans on every ship began to glow, with inner light as they activated their reality anchoring abilities. The space around the fleet became more solid, more real, as if they were strengthening the fabric of the universe itself. Devourer is responding to our presence, Dr. Kane reported. It's changing course, moving toward us. All ships engage, Jake ordered. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. The human fleet didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they projected waves of pure reality, strengthening the space around them while weakening the Devourers. Influence. The enhanced humans worked in concert, their minds linked through the quantum communication network. Reality anchor deployment successful, Captain Hall reported. The Devourer's advance has stopped, but the entity fought back. Waves of unreality washed over the fleet, trying to convince the universe that the ships had never existed. Several vessels flickered and began to fade, but the enhanced crews held on, their stubborn human consciousness refusing to accept non-existence. The Crystalline Collective is engaging from the north, Colonel Parker announced. The Void Walkers are beginning their assault from the rim. Jake watched as the battle expanded across multiple dimensions. The allied species each fought in their own way. The Crystalline Collective used harmonic resonance to strengthen reality's structure. The Void Walkers attacked the Devourer's ability to perceive its targets. The machine consciousness began calculating new laws of physics that would make the Devourer's existence impossible. It's working, Dr. Kane called out excitedly. The Devourer is losing coherence. It's having trouble maintaining its form. But the entity wasn't finished. It began to pulse with dark energy, and Jake felt a terrible pressure on his mind. The Devourer was trying to convince him that he had never existed, that humanity had never existed, that the entire galaxy was just a dream. "Hold fast," Jake commanded, his voice carrying across the quantum network to every ship in the fleet. Remember who you are, remember what you're fighting for. The enhanced humans blazed with light as they pushed back against the Devourer's mental assault. Their human stubbornness, enhanced by architect technology, proved to be the perfect defense against the entity's reality-warping attacks. The Devourer is retreating, Colonel Parker announced. It's withdrawing from the Rigel system. Don't let it escape, Jake ordered. All ships pursue and maintain pressure. The chase lasted for hours, the human fleet and their allies driving. The Devourer backed toward the galactic rim. For the first time in cosmic history, the entity that had consumed 17 galaxies was in retreat. "Admiral," Dr. Kane called out, her voice filled with wonder. "The Devourer is changing. It's becoming more solid, more real, I think our reality anchors are actually healing it. Jake stared at the entity, which was indeed becoming more substantial. Instead of a hole in reality, it was starting to look like an actual creature, vast and ancient but no longer purely destructive. "This is impossible," Captain Hall said. "We can't be healing the thing that's been destroying galaxies." "Maybe that's what the architects missed," Dr. Kane said thoughtfully. "Maybe the Devourer isn't evil. Maybe it's just ... broken, separated from reality so long that it forgot how to exist normally." Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All ships cease offensive operations, switch to full reality anchoring. Let's see if we can bring it back. "Admiral, that's incredibly dangerous," Colonel Parker warned. "If we're wrong, it could destroy us all. And if we're right, we save not just our galaxy but all the others the Devourer has consumed," Jake replied. "The architects tried to fight it. We're going to try to heal it." The fleet surrounded the Devourer, their reality anchors working in harmony to strengthen the space around the entity. Slowly, incredibly, the creature began to solidify. Jake could see intelligence in its movements, awareness returning to something that had been lost in unreality for eons. "It's working," Dr. Kane whispered. "The Devourer is becoming real again." The entity that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years suddenly stopped moving. For a moment, Jake thought it might attack, but instead, it began to communicate. Not with words or images, but with pure meaning that the enhanced humans could interpret. "It's thanking us," Captain Hall said in amazement. "It says it's been lost for so long that it forgot what it was like to exist." "The consumed galaxies," Jake asked, "can they be restored?" The Devourer's response filled the minds of everyone in the fleet. The destroyed galaxies weren't gone. They had been absorbed, held in a state of potential existence within the entity itself. With its return to reality, those galaxies could be restored. "It's offering to undo everything," Dr. Kane said, tears streaming down her face. "All the destruction, all the death. It wants to make things right." Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Do it." The process took days. The Devourer, now restored to its original form as a guardian of reality rather than its destroyer, began to reverse the damage it had caused. Galaxies flickered back into existence, billions of stars reborn, countless worlds restored to life. "Admiral," the communication officer called out, "we're receiving signals from across the galaxy." "Civilizations?" "That were Destro,"